This is the brand new Sony A6500. It fits into the same niche as the fairly new Sony A6300, but represents in small and large ways a significant step forward. This is a comprehensive and detailed comparison of these two cameras. And no, I don't know why 6100, 6200, and 6400 were not considered suitable model names.
Both are E-mount cameras with the same APS-C sensor and 24 megapixel resolution. From the front, the A6500's grip is slightly deeper with a more pronounced index finger rest. Other dimensions are the same. I prefer the deeper grip. The AF illuminator remains right where your finger will inevitably block it. On the bottom, the battery release latch is different. Memory cards still go in backwards, making them awkward to remove. Same battery, although now Sony rates it for fewer shots, down to 310 from 350. The video rating is reduced by 10 minutes to 1 hour 45 minutes. Those are not real-world numbers. The card activity light is rectangular on the A6300, round on the 6500. On top, a SteadyShot inside badge has been added. The dial is a matte finish. A custom button has been added, and they've been repositioned on the top panel. Same multi-interface hot shoe. Same pop-up flash, which can be tilted back to bounce. Same guide number. Same 1/160 sync. The size and resolution of the LCD and XGA OLED viewfinder are the same, with the same 90 up, 45 down articulation. A 180-degree flip-up would have made this a perfect vlogging camera. But the A6500 screen is a touchscreen, used for focus. It's complicated. Let me show you. I'm in stills mode, aperture priority, AF single, wide area. Pre-AF is off, C1 is focus magnifier, AF/MF is toggle, the AEL button is AF on, center lock on, off. I'm leaving the focus shutter interlock on for now. Touch is on. When I touch the screen, a focus box appears, but nothing happens until I press the shutter or AF on, even in AF continuous, less than I expected. Switching to manual, double tapping the screen starts the focus magnifier and pans it around the screen. Now movie mode, AF continuous. Here it does adjust the focus after I touch, the feature I was hoping for, providing a nice rack focus. That's the touch panel. There's also the touch pad. While shooting with the viewfinder, use your thumb to position the focus point. It's a bit unpredictable as you lift your finger to paddle over. Although it seems as if this should work when an external monitor is connected, it doesn't. With center lock on, touch the subject to track. Touch features are a good step forward, but until Sony adds focus and snap, it's less than the competition. The other big new deal is 5-axis stabilization, which is an improvement. I find it easiest to demonstrate using the expanded focus view, which demonstrates the clear advantage of turning it on. Compared to the A6300, the A6500 improves on its already good technology. A secondary advantage is the A6500 stabilization support for non-E-mount lenses. On the back, C2 has become C3. No changes in the ports on the left side, still hoping for an HDMI retaining screw port like the A7S II and a headphone connector. USB port is used to charge, but can also power the camera while shooting, a most useful feature. Note that the internal battery still drains when external power is connected, but it does last longer. Same amber LED lights up when it's charging. Same on-screen icon to show it's USB powered. The A6500 is a few grams heavier than the A6300. The A6000 was a very modest 344 grams in comparison. Let's get a couple of performance issues out of the way. The high-speed burst sets a new high watermark. 283 shots in 34 seconds, over 8 per second, before it hits the buffer wall. There's a minor interruption to the display while shooting. These are 11 meg fine JPEGs with manual exposure and focus, and if you thought that was fast, there's High Plus, 30% faster. It buffers out after 255 shots in 23 seconds, better than 11 shots per second, but with a slower screen refresh. The downside of this endurance is a very long recovery time. Even with an XDSC U3 card, now called V30, over a minute to clear the buffer. You can continue to shoot, but the menu is locked out. The A6300 is just as fast, but its buffer lasts only 49 shots. That's 6 seconds at high, 4 at high plus. The A6500's buffer must be 5 times larger, and that's a substantial boost. The A6300 is overly susceptible to overheating, so that's a performance issue I was very anxious to test. There's a new menu item on the 6500. I set the auto power off temperature to high, and then started recording side by side in a 22 degrees Celsius room with identical settings, 4K 24 frames, 100 megabits data rate. The displays, all icons and indicators, are the same. The A6300 overheating icon appeared at 22 minutes. It shut down about 4 minutes later with an audible end of recording beep. The overheating icon appeared on the A6500 at 26 minutes, and it stopped at its 2950 limit, which still has no audible warning. I restarted and it continued to record through another 2950 stop until the battery ran out after recording for 62 minutes. So I tried with the A6500 connected to USB power, which delayed the overheating icon's appearance to 4 minutes into the second recording, and it eventually stopped at 98 minutes when it filled up a 64 gigabit SD card. I changed SD cards and continued recording for another 12 minutes until the battery was exhausted, overheating icon still on the screen. Conclusion: compared to the A6300, the A6500 overheats, but keeps going. From the initialization screen, the initial setup is identical all the way to the Play Memories invite. Default screen and settings in Intelligent Auto also identical. On the A6000, Intelligent Auto provided a novice settings menu. Neither has that feature. Turning the mode dial to M, the shutter speed, bulb to 1/4000th, and aperture dials are the same. Press ISO on the multi-controller, and the A6500 screen has a slightly different layout, but the range 100 to 51,200 is the same. The scrolling behavior has also changed. The selection scrolls and remains centered, rather than paging down. Auto has the same range. Multi-frame auto has the same settings. Identical exposure compensation, identical drive modes. Display modes, both in Viewfinder and the LCD, are also identical. In shooting mode, the A6300 C1 opens the focus mode menu, C2 or trash button opens white balance. The settings are the same. These are reversed on the 6500 with white balance on C1, and then the added C3 button has no default action in shooting mode. A slight rearrangement of the Fun menu and the DRO setting has been exchanged for Quality. Worth noting that the extensive customization settings for both buttons and the Fun menu make them easy to set to any desired function. The menu has been updated, but only slightly, with some color coding on the tabs across the top. Same blocky font, same low-res design. Menu resolution output to an external monitor is HD, not 4K. The A6300's 9 screens with up to 6 items have expanded to 14 on the A6500, but the screens now have identifying labels. In addition to the page number in the top right, there's a progress bar across the bottom. Seems redundant. I was able to find every option on the A6300 menu on the A6500, all with identical options. There's no need to review them all. A few notes. AF track sends, moved to the movie settings, was normal and high on the 6300, now standard and responsive. Functionality seems the same. The metering mode selections, multi, standard, and spot remain, but the 6500 has 2 sizes of spot, an entire screen average, and a highlight mode, which I found very useful on other cameras. And the spot metering point can now be linked to the focus point, also a requested improvement. The A6500 has a second SteadyShot Settings panel to manually select a focal length. The A6300's memory recall and memory have been relabeled, memory to set, recall to use. Functionality seems to be the same. The second tab, the 8-screen Tools tab on the A6300, has become a second 9-page Camera tab, which starts with the Movie settings, which have been consolidated here, before returning to the Tools settings from the A6300. The Movie Mode selection has renamed HFR, High Frame Rate, to S&Q, Slow and Quick Motion, with updated imagery. S&Q settings in a minute. There's still P, A, S, and M modes. The Movie menu, renamed Movie S&Q, has a few more options. The fastest frame rate remains 120, providing 5 times slow motion when 24-frame playback is selected. New are frame rates 15, 8, 4, 2, and 1 per second, which provides speeded up to 24, 30, or 60 times depending on the playback frame rate. 2 screens of wireless options. Screen 1 remains the same. The A6300 second screen, with the exception of Edit Device Name and Reset, has been collapsed to Wi-Fi settings on a secondary screen. The second screen on the A6500 has Bluetooth, used to synchronize location information from a smartphone. The Lock Info Link Set configures that. Playback screens remain meager. The A6500 adds photo capture to grab a still from a video file. The 7 setup screens on the A6500 audio signals move to screen 9 of the second camera tab, which doesn't really help. On screen 2, auto power off temp, as demonstrated above, has been added on the A6500. Page 375 of the help guide says that using the high setting allows the camera to reach a higher temperature before shutting down. It warns that this may cause low temperature burns and recommends a tripod. It also states the recordable time for movies may not change in the small print footnote. Evaluating dynamic range is tricky, and using 100% Zebra and the Shogun's waveform monitor to set exposure, the two cameras did not agree. There's no change to the picture profiles, and on a DSC Lab Xyla chart, they both have an 8-stop range with profiles off at IRE 100%. That increases to 11 stops with S-Log2 at IRE 85, 12 or 13 with S-Log3 IRE 80. Without digging too deep, I am observing a slightly less noisy recording on the 6500 and a slightly lower black level. It is, however, still only an 8-bit recording. The rolling shutter effect is roughly the same, as is the crop from the Super 35 24-frame mode to 30 frames. Sensor cleaning now vibrates the camera loudly. Screen 3 has the 3 touch settings: panel, pad, both, or off, pad vertical on, and pad area, how much of the screen is used as a touchpad while shooting with the viewfinder. New options for the function menu include auto white balance priority, SQ frame rate, SteadyShot adjustments, and the live view preview. New options for the custom buttons also reflect new features like SQ frame rate and SteadyShot. Both cameras support tethered shooting with Sony's remote camera control app. The A6500 can be configured to save images to the camera or camera and computer, and can save either or both RAW and JPEG files to the PC. Format is back at the top of a page for easier access. The remainder is identical. The overall reorganization of the menu is positive. Movie items are together, zoom items are together, focus magnifier activation and duration have been united, as have face detection and registration. But long exposure noise reduction is with quality, not exposure. Color space is with quality, not color. Exposure set guide with display, not exposure. Menu settings and overlay on the HDMI output is still not available while shooting 4K.
I'll admit that my initial reaction to the A6500 was negative, and there's still lots of things about this series of cameras that I'd like to see improved, like a longer battery life, the end of the 30-minute limit for recording video, a higher data rate for recording video, 422 color and 10-bit, maybe even RAW recording. But overall, I'm impressed. This is a significant upgrade. The A6500 is a much better camera than the A6300. Sorry.